At the stroke of midnight, when the river of time ebbed and flowed between life and death, Amenhotep, garbed in a ceremonial white kilt, approached the altar. In his hands he held the heart of power, the crook and flail, symbols of kingship passed down since the dawn of dynasties. He raised them high, his form silhouetted against the flames, a colossus of might and melancholy. Gods of the great Ennead, he intoned his voice, echoing with the weight of ages. I stand before you this night, not only as your servant, but as every pharaoh before me who has fought against chaos and preserved Mat. His gaze swept over the writhing effigies, their painted eyes gleaming with malevolent glee. These are my enemies, those who seek to sully Egypt's brilliance with their perfidy and blood. They have risen in arms against me, defying the order you have ordained. A beat of silence, stretched taut as linen, broken only by the crackling flames. Then Amenhotep continued, his voice hardening like granite. Like the serpent that poisons the air with its venom, they poisoned the south with rebellion. Like the hyena that feasts on carrion, they feast on our lands, pillaging all in their path. Tonight I consign them to non-being, that they may know no more sunrise nor set, that their memory shall wither like a grape before the vintage. Amenhotep paused, his chest heaving with the effort of speaking these dreadful words. With a final nod, he gestured toward the scribe, and the rite of destruction commenced. Kai staggered under the weight of the pharaoh's gaze. As he stepped forward, each footfall echoing like a death knell, his hands trembled. The first doll he took, representing Kofel the rebel, was cold and hard under his touch. Yet as he uttered the curses, it seemed to writhe in his grasp. A phantom limb of clay and shadow, Amenhotep chanted in a language older than time, weaving words of banishment and oblivion, while the other priests joined in chorus, their voices swelling with fervor. For each curse spoken, Kavi had to carve another gash upon the doll, the cool touch of the clay giving way to the searing pain of hot coals pressed against raw flesh. As the ceremony deepened, the room grew colder, and Kavi felt the presence of unseen entities gathering, their whispers like icy fingers tracing down his spine. Every stroke of his stylus drove the curses deeper, sealing the fates of the doomed. With each doll he handled, he saw visions of their demise, of mighty warriors trampled underfoot, of rebel leaders hanged or drowned, their deaths swift and agonizing. By the time the last curse was uttered, and the final doll laid upon the pyre, Kathy's hands were slick with sweat, and his heart pounded like a war drum. He stumbled back, his gaze wide with exhaustion and dread, as Amenhotep approached the burning effigies, their forms contorted in the flames, their painted eyes staring blankly ahead, their silent screams echoing in the chambers of his soul. The next morning, sunlight streamed through the temple's open doors, painting the floor with gold. The fires had died to embers, leaving behind an acrid smell of sacrifice, but the shadows still clung stubbornly to the corners, whispering tales of the night's dark deeds. Amenhotep stood amidst the remnants of the ritual, the gash marks on the dolls stark against the dying embers. A strange hollowness had crept into his bones, a void that echoed the emptiness in the eyes of the departed effigies. The faces of his counselors swam before him, their voices distant murmurs as he mechanically went through the motions of the day. Even the joyous chirp of birds outside seemed discordant in the face of the grim rites he performed. As the afternoon heat shimmered on the palace walls, Amenhotep found himself drawn to the royal gardens, a place of tranquil beauty that mocked the turmoil in his soul. The vibrant colors of flowers and the lush greenery offered no solace. The very laughter of children playing seemed a mockery of the silenced screams from the night before. It was here, amidst the intoxicating scent of lotus blossoms and the soothing murmur of fountains, that Tai sought him out. Her steps were soft on the flagstones, her presence like a balm to his troubled spirit. Yet the relief was fleeting. The sight of her, haggard-eyed and drawn, was a mirror to his own weariness. She did not speak, but her sorrow resonated in the silence between them. Together, they walked in companionable silence along the garden's winding paths, the weight of the crown pressing heavy on Amenhotep's brow. That night, after the palace had fallen silent, and the moon hung like a watchful eye in the inky sky, Amenhotep could not sleep. He paced his solar, his anxieties twisting within him like serpents. The shadows cast by the flickering torchlight seemed to writhe and twist, taking on grotesque shapes that mocked his own inner turmoil. The walls, once familiar and comforting, now loomed over him like accusing fingers, whispering tales of the night's grim deeds. Then, as if summoned by his thoughts, came a knock on the door. Amenhotep, his heart pounding like a war drum, motioned for the door to be opened. In stepped Tomos, his face pale in the torchlight, his eyes wide and glistening. "Divine One," he began, his voice uncharacteristically shaky, "I bring news from the south." Amenhotep, his gaze piercing, waited. Tomos swallowed, his Adam's apple bobbing. "The Nubians have risen in arms. The governors of the southernmost provinces have declared independence." The words hung in the air, heavy with import. Amenhotep's grip tightened on the torch he carried. His knuckles, white against the dim flame, betrayed the turmoil within. After a long moment, he spoke, his voice low and dangerous. "Did you not tell me yesterday that all was well in the south?" Thomas's eyes widened in alarm. "I did, my lord, but clearly I was misinformed. Forgive me." He fell to his knees before the pharaoh, his head bowed low. "It is I who have failed you. O king, I swear, by all that is holy, I will put down this rebellion and bring the traitors to justice." In the early hours of the next day, Amenhotep convened his council, the urgency of the situation evident in the summons. The air in the council chamber was thick with tension as nobles and advisers crowded around the royal dais. The news of the southern rebellion had spread like wildfire, fanning fears of a kingdom on the brink of chaos. As the sun climbed higher, casting long shadows from the anxious faces below, Amenhotep rose, his regal bearing a bulwark against the roiling sea of anxiety. His gaze, sharp and clear, held the attention of the court. "We gather here today not merely as subjects of Egypt, but as its defenders," he boomed, his voice echoing with authority. "Our southern borders are aflame with rebellion. The Nubians, once loyal tributaries, have raised their voices against our rule." A murmur rippled through the assembly. Such disloyalty was anathema to the concept of Mat. Yet, Amenhotep continued, his tone brooking no dissent. "Egypt's sun shall not set on disarray. We shall quell this rebellion, as we have quashed all those who dared defy our righteous rule." His eyes swept over the assembled courtiers, lingering on Tomos, whose face was pale, his ambition momentarily eclipsed by fear. "Tomos, your loyalty to Egypt has been steadfast. I have watched you serve." Tomos, startled by the sudden focus, bowed his head humbly. "It is my life's blood, O king, to serve Egypt and your majesty." Amenhotep nodded, his gaze returning to the intricate patterns on the floor. "Then go forth to the south and crush this rebellion. Let your victories be swift and decisive. The very foundations of our kingdom are at stake." Tomos, his earlier timidity forgotten, bowed deeply and then strode out of the council chamber, his shoulders squared, ambition rekindled by the call to action. With Tomos gone, Amenhotep sank into his throne, the weight of kingship pressing heavily on him. He understood that sending Tomos to war was as much about containing his dangerous ambition as crushing the rebellion. The shadow of Sebeknefru, the last king of the 12th dynasty, loomed large in his thoughts. That ruler, too, had sent his vizier, a man named Amenhat, on a campaign to pacify the unruly south, only to return and seize the throne. Could history repeat itself? Doubt coiled in Amenhotep's gut like a venomous snake. The elders of the court, men who had seen the ebb and flow of fortune, offered words of cautious optimism, but even their counsel was laced with anxiety. The reign of Amenhotep III, once a shining beacon of prosperity and peace, was suddenly storm-tossed. The specter of war, a threat he had kept at bay for decades, was now a looming presence. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting the palace in hues of orange and purple, Amenhotep knew that his sleepless nights were just beginning. The dreams of peace and prosperity were fading, replaced by the harsh realities of a kingdom on the brink. The shadow of war had fallen over Egypt, threatening to extinguish the flame of Mat. The wind whispers secrets through the tall papyrus reeds along the Nile, carrying with it the scent of jasmine and the soft murmur of a people going about their daily lives. It is a peaceful scene, one that belies the turmoil brewing within the walls of the great temple of Karnak. Here, in the dimly lit sanctum of the divine female, an ancient ceremony is about to unfold, one that will change the course of Egyptian history forever. A lone figure stands bathed in the ethereal glow of the torches, his face obscured by the heavy linen that drapes from his head to his feet. This is Amenhotep, the third king of the 18th dynasty, and today he is not just a ruler, but a supplicant. Before him stand 13 effigies, each one crafted to resemble the Nubian warriors who have dared to defy the might of Egypt. Each one represents a threat to the very fabric of the kingdom, and each one will tonight be made to suffer the punishment reserved for those who opposed the pharaoh. As the moon climbs high in the heavens, casting a pallid glow through the temple's slits, the execration rite intensifies. The air grows thick with the scent of incense and clay dust, creating a veil that blurs the line between the mortal world and the realm of the gods. Amenhotep's heart pounds in his chest, not with fear, but with a whirlwind of emotions. Justice demands the destruction of these threats, but mercy whispers of the humanity in his enemies. Are they truly soulless demons, or men driven to desperation? Men with families, with dreams and hopes for the future, just like him. The Nubians were not faceless demons, but men with families, driven by desperation. A truth that gnawed at his resolve. His fingers tighten around the mallet in his hand, the tool of his trade, the bane of his enemies. In this moment he sees them not as phantoms, but as boys who laughed under the African sun lovers, who pledged their devotion under the same moon that watches over him now, and fathers who dreamt of a better life for their children. With a resounding crack, he smashes the first doll, its fragments scattering like shattered lives. Each piece is a prayer, a plea for justice, a whisper of vengeance. He sends them forth, each one etched with a curse to bind the foe's car eternally, denying rebirth and consigning them to chaos. Around him, the assembled priests chant the incantations, their voices rising like a desert wind, invoking Set and Sekhmet to devour the named enemies. But even in this moment of religious fervor, there are glimmers of doubt in Amenhotep's eyes. For the Nubians, too, are sons of Ra, their anger born from the same sun that nourishes his people. He thinks of his own family, his wife and children, their laughter echoing in the chambers of his heart. Could their turn come, too, if he falters in his duty? The thought is a splinter in his mind, driving him to action. As the last doll falls, it collapses on the ground, drained but resolute. The ritual is done. The next morning, Amenhotep awakens with the sunrise, his mind clear but troubled. The faces of the Nubians, no longer demons, but men, haunt his waking thoughts. He wonders if his actions were just, if the curses he sent forth will bring peace or only more bloodshed. Thomos, the high priest, approaches him, his face creased with age and wisdom. He, too, grapples with the weight of the previous night's events. While he understands the need for appeasement, he sees the cracks in the foundation of Egypt, the discontent simmering among the people. Could this conflict have been avoided? The pharaoh desires peace, but the gods demand retribution. Caught between his loyalty to the divine and his love for his people, Thomos seeks guidance. Yet beneath his piety, ambition festers. He sees the right as a path to power, a way to influence the young pharaoh's doubts and fears. If he can nudge Amenhotep toward war, he could become the power behind the throne, guiding Egypt according to his own designs. Thus begins a dangerous game of manipulation, a battle of wills between priest and pharaoh, where the fate of Egypt hangs in the balance. Meanwhile, Queen Tai stirs in the royal apartments, her mind far from the luxury that surrounds her. Last night's rituals have shaken her to her core. She, too, believes in peace with the Nubians, seeing the value in trade and cultural exchange. But tradition's chains bind her, and the court's obsession with blood sacrifices only serves to deepen her despair. As she prepares for the day, her fingers twist a linen cloth, her mind lost in a world where diplomacy, not destruction, is the norm. Her son Amenhotep, whom she had hoped would usher in a new era of enlightenment, instead embraces the old ways. Her tragic role as consort to a cursed throne weighs heavier with each passing day. In the scribe's quarters, Kai wakes with the dawn, his mind still reeling from the events of the previous night. The rhythmic scrape of his chisel against the clay tablets seems mocking in light of the curses he sent forth. How many of those inscribed on the dolls were real men, perhaps fathers like himself, driven to desperation by the whims of fate and circumstance? Was this the legacy he wanted to leave behind? The thought eats away at him, twisting his insides like a serpent. His hands are stained with clay and ink, his soul with regret. But survival demanded compliance, and so he did his duty, earning his gold and keeping his head. Later that day, as Amenhotep prepares to receive his counselors, a sense of unease settles over the palace. The courtiers whisper of the Nubian threat, their words like daggers aimed at the pharaoh's resolve. Some urge caution, some call for swift retribution. Amidst the clamor, two figures approach, their presence commanding attention. First comes Thamos, the high priest, his eyes gleaming with purpose. He reminds the pharaoh of his divine duty, urging him to act swiftly against the heretics. Next to him stands Saranput, the vizier, his face etched with worry. He speaks of the economic ties between Egypt and Nubia, warning that war could disrupt the flow of gold and grain. His pleas fall on deaf ears. Amenhotep, swayed by Thomas's manipulations, has already made up his mind. He will crush the Nubian rebellion, not for the sake of his people or the gods, but because he believes it is his duty as a pharaoh. As the sun dips below the horizon, casting long shadows across the temple, the ritual of burial begins. The shattered pieces of the dolls are collected and placed in a pit outside the temple walls. With each doll, Amenhotep relives the curses he has uttered, the blood-soaked promises of eternal damnation. Over the pit, the priests chant, their voices echoing in the stillness of the evening. They invoke the wrath of the gods, calling upon the underworld to claim the essence of the condemned. But even in this moment of solemn duty, the pharaoh cannot shake off the feeling that he is playing a part in a cosmic tragedy. With the last doll interred, the pit is sealed with a heavy stone slab, hiding the remnants of the Nubian warriors beneath the earth. Amenhotep pours libations of sweet wine over the grave, watching as it seeps into the thirsty earth like blood staining the sand. Under the indifferent gaze of the moon, he has ensured that the enemies of Egypt will not rest in peace. Yet, as he turns to leave, a vision assails him, vivid and inescapable. The dolls in the pit rise, their shattered bodies knitting themselves back together, their eyes burning with otherworldly fire. Their curses rebound upon him, twisting in his gut like vipers. He sees his dynasty crumbling, his people divided, and Egypt itself torn asunder. Fear, cold and paralyzing, grips his heart. The rituals, the appeasement, the sacrifices, all of it has led to this, to the destruction of the very kingdom he swore to protect. He rushes to the queen, seeking solace in her arms, but finds only shared dread in her eyes. As they stand together, watching the moon climb higher in the sky, they know that their destinies are intertwined with the fate of Egypt, a nation teetering on the brink of ruin. The temple falls silent, the wind sighing through the columns, carrying faint echoes of smashed clay, a somber portent of the eternal doom invoked. Where protection birthed peril and power's grasp slipped through fingers of fate, the eternal vigilance demanded of kings left Amenhotep questioning if he truly reigned or merely played a doomed part in a grander scheme. Where appeasement bred unrest and sacrifice yielded only haunting portents. And so the night wore on, each hour a torment, each shadow a specter of the terrible doom that had been unleashed. The ritual of appeasement, meant to bind away danger, had instead wove a tapestry of omens and dread, leaving the pharaoh and his court suspended between hope and ruin. That's all for this video. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a comment. See you in the next one. The sun, a molten coin tossed carelessly to the east, sailed aloft the horizon, spilling gold across the rooftops of Thebes. It was a new dawn, yet the city still drowsed in the haze of dusk, shrouded in an ethereal quiet. In the Karnak temple complex, amidst the colossal forms of bygone pharaohs, Amenhotep the Magnificent awoke, his repose disturbed by dreams of writhing dolls and whispers of eternity damned. The Nile's gentle murmurs sounded like secrets shared between pharaoh and river god. As the sun's first blush kissed the eastern sky, Amenhotep stepped from the sanctuary, his regal form bearing the weight of the night's ordeal. His face, usually radiant with the glow of divine favor, was tonight a taut mask, the triumph of battle yielding to the somber hues of doubt and foreboding. Yesterday's victory against the Nubian raiders now felt less like triumph and more like a Pyrrhic pact with the netherworld. The execration figures, those silent sentinels of doom, had done their grisly work, binding his enemies' fates to wander eternally in the void. The chilling echo of the rite resonated within him, a fevered whisper promising future agonies. The morning air was thick with anticipation as reports trickled in from the outlying villages and towns. Each dispatch carried tidings of sudden disruptions, of Nubian raids halted abruptly, of rebels succumbing to illness, of entire households decimated as if devoured by unseen hands. Whispers of the magic's bite reached Amenhotep, weaving tales of retribution served cold and merciless. Yet his elation was a brittle thing, fractured by visions of the doll's vacant eyes that taunted him even in daylight. They were symbols of the humanity he had so coldly consigned to the abyss, their shattered forms a macabre requiem for the cursed. His conflict was one that crested, a pharaoh sworn to protect his people, yet employing the same darkness his foes wielded, condemned to mirror their cruelty in every turn. From his palace high above the bustling streets of Thebes, Amenhotep surveyed his domain, the city stirring to life, the river flowing serenely, oblivious to the curse it bore within. And as he watched, a chill snaked down his spine, tightening his grasp on the armrests of his throne. Was this tranquility a mere lull before the storm? The faces of his enemies, those he had forever banished, swam before his eyes. Were they already returning, their wraiths borne on the desert winds, to haunt his waking hours? Or was it the creeping dread of the curse's rebound that poisoned his triumph? His fingers, usually steady and sure, trembled slightly, betraying the turmoil beneath his regal composure. The pharaoh's gaze, usually sharp as a hawk's, was clouded with uncertainty, reflecting the turbulence of a soul grappling with the darkness it has unleashed. The shadow of the execration ceremony stretched long and dark, eclipsing even the brilliance of his victory. His triumph over his enemies was complete, yes, but at what cost? And what would the morrow bring? Thamos, Amenhotep's vizier, astute and ambitious, saw in the pharaoh's shadowed visage an opportunity. A subtle shift in tone, a slight tremor in the king's voice, these were clues not lost on the wily courtier. While Amenhotep wrestled with the ghosts of his actions, Thamos moved, his steps soundless as a serpent's glide. He whispered to the attentive ear, insinuating doubts, painting pictures of the pharaoh's frailty. Rumors took wing, riding on the currents of gossip and fear, reaching eager ears that longed to believe their beloved pharaoh fallible. The seeds of doubt, once planted, sprouted quickly in the fertile ground of Thebes, nurtured by Thomos's subtle machinations. Now Amenhotep's shaken state was common knowledge. A pharaoh once invincible was showing signs of cracks, his reign no longer unassailable, his strength not the invincible force it was proclaimed to be. It was a tale spun so convincingly that even Queen Tai, Amenhotep's anchor to stability, found herself swayed by its currents. her once bright eyes clouded with worry, her gentle touch replaced by a guarded reserve. The palace walls, once echoing with laughter and warmth, now reverberated with hushed tones and furtive glances, each shadow seeming to harbor some hidden menace. As the days wore on, the dissonance grew. For Amenhotep, the weight of the curse's aftermath pressed heavily. His enemies might be scattered, but their absence only amplified their potential threat. Their wraiths lingered in his thoughts, their malevolent essence seeping into his very dreams. Sleep offered no respite, only amplifying his torment. He tossed restlessly, haunted by visions of the dolls, their vacant eyes boring into his soul, their mocking silence echoing in his ears. In the dead of night, his heart pounded against his ribs, mimicking the relentless rhythm of the Nile as it flowed inexorably toward the sea. Dawn brought little solace. The rising sun, usually a harbinger of hope, seemed to mock his despair. Each day bled into the next, weaving a tapestry of unease, each thread a whisper of impending doom. Yet fate, it seemed, had a cruel sense of irony. In a twist of narrative fortune, Talmos's star waned. During a minor skirmish at the border, aimed at boosting his own glory, he was captured by the very Nubians he had so confidently cursed alongside Amenhotep. News of his capture sent tremors through the palace, a stark reminder of the fragility of their vaunted power. What followed was a grim procession of misfortune. Thutmose's mangled body was returned, a gruesome offering from the Nubians. His eyes, they say, were gouged out, left vacant sockets, mirroring the doll's own eerie stare, a haunting symmetry of fate. It was as if the curse he had helped unleash had boomeranged, finding its mark in the most intimate of ways. Even the queen, Tai, was not spared from the descending gloom. Witnessing the body of her trusted vizier, his form desecrated, his eyes absent, her already fragile health gave way. Her last days were filled with whispers of peace, a lament for a Thebes that would never truly be whole again. She died as they had come to know her, embalmment rites performed with full royal honors, yet her spirit forever restless. The grand palace of Amenhotep resounded with the echoes of calamity. One by one, the pillars of his realm were crumbling, each fall a testament to the curse's insidious reach. Kai, the scribe, stricken by remorse, fled the palace, seeking refuge in a nameless village. There, amidst the hum of daily life, he attempted to carve out a new existence. But his past deeds clung to him like a shroud. Consumed by guilt, he fashioned a doll in his own likeness, inscribing his name upon it in the Execration text. Cursing himself, overwhelmed by the immensity of his sin, he smashed the doll in despair, hoping to shatter the curse he believed he had woven. Yet fate dealt its final blow. Days later, his body was discovered lifeless in the humble hut, his hand clutching fragments of the clay he had so desperately sought to destroy. Beside him, a silent indictment. The air grew heavy with foreboding, each passing day ratcheting up the dread. Amenhotep's reign, once the zenith of power, was now on a precipice, teetering on the edge of ruin. Rebellions he had thought he'd crushed reared their heads anew. The land that had known peace under his father's rule was now a maelstrom of unrest. The Nile, once a life-giving artery, seemed to pulse with a disquieting rhythm. The very soil of Thebes bore witness to the curse's blight, withering crops and livestock alike. The people, once proud and vibrant, huddled in their homes, their faces drawn and haggard, their voices hushed with fear. Even the temple, sanctuary of the gods, did not offer solace. The priests, their voices trembling, spoke of omens, of portents on the temple walls, of phantoms gliding through the sacred halls. With each passing hour, the curse's grip tightened, ensnaring the pharaoh's soul and tainting the very essence of his kingdom. And Amenhotep, once the embodiment of strength, found himself a prisoner in the gilded cage of his own making. His limbs ached, mirroring the stiffness of the bound dolls. His vision blurred, as if seeing through the shattered lenses of the cursed effigies. He was living in the twilight realm, caught between the fading embers of his power and the encroaching chill of the curse's embrace. The great pharaoh, famed for his strategic brilliance and martial prowess, was succumbing to ailments that mocked his royal bearing. The palace walls, once a symbol of his invincibility, became a tomb, sealing him in an ivory prison. As his strength ebbed, his mind reeled, haunted by visions of the dolls, their silent accusations echoing through his waking hours. His contemporaries had been many, his lineage illustrious, yet none had fallen as he did, consumed by the very magic meant to safeguard their bloodline. He was to die young, his life prematurely snuffed out, his tomb later desecrated, as if the curses had turned inwards, devouring their own. The irony was not lost on the historians who chronicled his tale. The same magic that had felled his enemies had sealed his fate, twisting his legacy into a cautionary echo. In the annals of history, Amenhotep's name is a lament, a solemn dirge for a pharaoh who dared to wield the ultimate weapon only to find himself ensnared by its deadly coils.